Hey there, and welcome to the third video in a series in which I'm celebrating Pride, Good Omen style, by turning Aziraphale's bookshop sign into a Pride flag bookmark through Needlepoint. And I've already designed and charted and then painted the design onto the needlepoint canvas. And so what I'm doing in this video is actually stitching it with a thread. And before that, though, I need to prep the edges of the canvas by applying masking tape. And this is just a low tack masking tape that's designed for artists who like paint on canvases to mask out where they're going to paint so that it doesn't, I know that it's not going to leave a residue on the cotton of the canvas. If I don't do this, the threads along the edges will kind of unravel and separate. Basically, be a pain in the tuchus. So I thought I'd show you that process, um, and as well as burnishing it down with my thumbnail there, and the most awkward thumbs up ever, apparently. And here I am, ready to start stitching. I've got some program queued up on the TV. Gosh, whatever could it be? As well as a sleeping cat in her bed and a hovering cat next to me on the arm of the couch. So I'm ready to go. Got all my supplies, eyeglasses, because my eyes are not what they used to be. So I've got little drugstore reading glasses, a little magnet to hold my needle, scissors, thread, and I thought I would time this to see how long it would take. Spoilers, took a long time. I only ended up timing the first color stripe just to kind of get an idea of how long it would take. A little break here to give my cat Ryder some attention because he asked for some. And we're ready to go. I chose to use DMC floss. Um, because it's fairly affordable and easy to find. Oh, bye, Ryder. See you later. Easy to find at most big box craft stores, at least here in the United States, like Michael's or Joann's, those sorts of places. So it's fairly accessible. It is composed of 6 smaller strands of floss, all kind of twirled around each other, which is too much thread for the 18 count canvas that I'm working with. It has 18 stitches per inch. So I'm stripping out 2 of those strands so that I'll have 4 total. And then I'm actually separating each of those 4 out and then putting them back together because they are sort of twirled around each other. And if you strip them all and then lay them next to each other before you thread them onto your needle, it gives you a more sort of uniform look as you're stitching. It's a subtle effect, but it does affect how it looks. So that's what I do. When you start a thread with needlepoint, there's no need to put a knot in the back. In fact, you, for the most part, shouldn't have to unless you're doing like a specialty work um, that has open sections where you can kind of see the back. But it's easy enough, especially with this stitch, which is just a very basic stitch, to leave a bit of a tail on the back side and then use your stitching to cover that tail so that it holds it down. So if for some reason that very first stitch were to catch on something once the project is complete, it won't just pull that tail right out of the canvas. It should be fine. And I even go a little overboard on it. You don't have to do as many stitches as I end up doing. Um, whatever you need to do. And this stitch, like I said, very basic. If you imagine the canvas threads are woven, but they're very open. So each stitch is a very visible kind of like T intersection. And so when I stitch with the thread, I come up on the bottom left open part, bottom left of that intersection, and then I go down on the top right. So this makes a stitch that slants from the bottom left to the top right. I think cross stitchers may refer to this as a half stitch, but again, I've done very little cross stitch, so I'm a little ignorant in the terminology for this. Um, but this is a really good way to do stripes, like what I'm doing here. You just start at the one end and move all the way across the canvas. And it's going to give you a nice even coverage and a full coverage. This is one of the stitches that has its origins in sort of the versatility and utility of needlepoint. Needlepoint not only has a history of being something decorative, like something you might frame and put on the wall, but also of useful items, things like couch cushions or even inserts into furniture, like inserts into the back of a chair or a seat cushion that people actually sit on. So there are a fair amount of needlepoint techniques that are designed to create full coverage and durability to withstand wear and tear. And this is one of them because it covers every single little intersection. And there are several different ways of achieving this look. Um, this particular one is called Continental Stitch. If you, for some reason, want to Google that to get kind of a better idea of how to do it, Continental is the way to go. And you can see there when you're done with the thread, just bury your needle underneath the back of the stitches there, kind of like I'm doing here when I'm starting a new thread. Don't catch any of the actual canvas threads, just the back part of your stitches. It's one of the reasons why I like Continental Stitch, because it does give you a nice full backing to your work that you can use for things like that. And so that's what I did. I would just go across, and then get to the end of the line. At first, I tried turning around and going back the other way because I am impatient, but it ended up affecting the look of the stitches. Like the coverage and the evenness didn't look quite right. You can kind of see it on there, maybe top couple of rows. You can see how it's like a little bumpy and uneven. So eventually, oh, an hour later there. That's about how long it took to do that stripe, about an hour. Um, eventually, when I got into the orange one, I started going across from right to left all the way, stopping, cutting my thread, starting over at the beginning again, and that gave me a much more even coverage. And here I just wanted to show you what happens when I got to the lettering. So, I did not stitch over the ones that I had painted gold when I was painting. I skipped those stitches. So I was doing the same continental stitch, but I would skip them. When I got to a section where I had like 4 or 5 stitches in a row that were painted gold that I didn't want to put the yellow thread on, I would flip to the back, bury my needle for a few stitches just so I didn't have a big long um, section along the back, big long loop. And that's what it looks like when I've got all the stripes stitched. I didn't really do anything different on any of the stripes. They were all continental stitch. They were all just stitched from right to left, pretty basic. On here though, I wanted to give you an idea, kind of like a little mini introduction to the basket weave stitch, which will give you the same look. Every single intersection is covered, every single stitch is stitched. Um, but it's a way to do this by going diagonally instead of horizontally across the canvas. And this is a really good technique to do if you've got just a big swatch of just all one color, or, a big swatch where maybe there's very few color changes. Um, and it gives you a very nice kind of interwoven background too. So I was just showing you how to do that here on the black, where I started out, where I just did a black stitch right up next to every single stripe on the flag there, and just went down, 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 down. And now I'm going back up, 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 up. And by the time I get back up to the top, I realize I should have started in the center so that I would have gone up to the top and then back down again to the center so that I could go down to the but anyway, yeah, that I didn't think that through very well. And you'll see I'll have to cut my thread here. Oh no, I don't cut it. I just bury my needle along the back there so I don't have a big loop of thread. A bit of a cheater's way if you're a stickler about a very, very tidy back, but I'm not always a stickler about a very tidy back. Some people are. And then here I just go back to the Continental stitch to finish up the last of the black stripe on the chevron there. And that's what I did for the rest of the colors. I won't show you every single one because I hope you get the idea there. You're smart, you can get it. And now I'm moving on to the gold. Y'all, I made a mistake by saving the gold lettering to the last. I'm working again with a metallic DMC floss, which has a very different feel to the cotton floss. I love working with the regular DMC floss. It flows smoothly through the canvas, rarely gives me any trouble. And I'm used to, when I work with metallic, to going to a local yarn shop, like a local needlepoint shop, and getting yarn that's actually specifically designed to fit through the size canvas that I'm using to fit through this 18 count canvas. So this was maybe like my first or second time working with metallic floss. Hello, Abby. This is my other cat, Abby. She likes to sit on my lap. So you'll see her in and out. And that it was loopy and it kept getting tangled. And I should have done the lettering first and then the background second, because as you can see there, I kept kind of having trouble finding exactly where I was supposed to bring the needle up. Eventually I did get the hang of working with this thread. It took some working with it, some experimentation with it. I've got 4 little pieces on it, just like I did with the regular floss. And eventually I figured out if I hold my thumb down here, these are techniques I've used with other thread that for some reason, like, I had to jumpstart my brain to get them to come up again. And then if I pinch the thread between my fingers on the back as I'm pulling it through, it just kind of helps stabilize it and prevents it from, like, twisting up on itself. Um, so hopefully that will help you too if you also use this thread. And it was about here that I had to move on to the next letter. It was so close, I didn't worry about there being a loop on the back of the canvas or anything. When I finish this O in co, I pop over to the C and just keep going. And right there, I made a mistake. I painted a stitch gold that should have been green, so I did not stitch it green. Fortunately, it was not a huge mistake, and I just went back in with some thread, with some green thread, and fixed it later. And here we go. Here is at the end. Oh, I also figured out that if I fold this floss, if I just thread 2 pieces of floss onto the needle and then fold it over and stitch like that, um, it worked a whole lot better than trying to work with 4 pieces and then having, like, the end of the thread sticking out of the needle. The folded over really helped control it. So, pro tip, I guess. But here we are. Here's the last stitch or so, and then fold it over, buried it to finish it off. You can see the back there. Not too bad, not too messy. And there we are. Ba ba da ba 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 ba. And to give you an idea of how long it took, I watched all of season 2 and season 1 up into the point where Newt got into the car crash and he fainted, which is just about how I felt when I was done working with this gold thread. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. There's going to be one more video, and it's going to be me actually taking the canvas and turning it into a bookmark, which is called finishing. I don't have as much experience with this as I do with stitching, so woohoo! It should be interesting. Hope you're along for the ride, and I will, yeah, see you around the internet.